Hey there, Helene. I would love to tell a couple of really good Michael Landon stories. The great thing about Michael is there are so many good stories to tell. First and foremost, the man was supremely talented. He was writing, directing, producing, and acting in Little House on the Prairie. I'm sure that you're all aware of that. However, I don't know how many people are aware of how much work that is. He was writing the episodes as they would drive him into work and drive him home. He would go and look at edits during lunch. He was directing the episodes that he would act in. Just an amazing, amazing talent. In addition, he was one of the nicest people that I've ever worked with and for. A guy doing all of those things could easily be someone that had an ego the size of, Montana itself, or I should say the size of Minnesota itself, but he never allowed that to get in the way of the way that he treated other people. He was one of the kindest people that I've ever worked with. Um, if you're deep into the lore of Little House and are kind of aware of Allison and Melissa and all the stories that they tell, you'll know that he was a very funny man. If you don't, I'm telling you, he was a very, very funny man. He loved a good joke and he would love to be in on a good practical joke. Of the couple stories I'm going to tell you, two of them are funny ones. The one that I think has been told, but it's just, I still think is great, is there was a lady, Mary, who was our script supervisor, and she takes notes of what's happening in each and every scene. And so she has a chair and she has a big book, a big script. And the chair has bags on it so that she can carry her scripts from location to location. And, on Little House, there was a lot of gentlemen around, and so they would carry her chair around every now and again. But for the main part, Mary would, just drag her chair from one place to another. On this one particular day, Michael started putting small rocks into her bags. And so by the end of the day, her chair was weighted down by maybe about 10 extra pounds of rocks. Again, all for the joke, which she loved, and it was pretty hysterical. Another one of his practical jokes was, he would always consult with Mary about an upcoming scene, and one of the things Michael would do is, he would, call you over and wave you over to come and talk to him. So on this one particular time, he had found this tiny little frog over by what's, I guess, Plum Creek. It was just basically a ditch that they filled with water whenever we needed a creek by the little house. And he found this small frog and he put it in his mouth and he called Mary over without her knowing it was there. And she came over and she's got her scripts and everything. She goes, "Yes, Michael." And he looked at her and he smiled and he opened his mouth and this frog jumped out and she freaked out. As a kid, that was like one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen. Um, One of the other things that he did, which I thought was hysterical, is later in the show, Melissa's mom had bought herself this really nice car that she was really excited for. And she had come to the studio to go to lunch with Melissa, and she was kind of showing off the car, which you do. I mean, it's just the way it is. While she was at lunch, Michael had the special effects guys put in smoke bombs underneath the hood of the car so that when she got in the car, they would time it so the smoke bombs would go off when she turned it on, making it feel like her engine had just exploded. She was parked right outside the set. This is when we had moved from Paramount to MGM. And pretty much everybody except for Melissa's mom was in on it. I even think Melissa was in on it. And I remember, I mean, the practical joke went off perfectly. She got in the car, she turned on the ignition, and all of this smoke starts billowing out of her engine. And she's like, oh my God, my new car. And it was really fun. But the thing I remember most of all was seeing 50 people try to sneak around the corner of the studio lot to see what was happening. That was probably more fun than anything, just to see how, Michael had orchestrated this thing where 50 people are sneaking around a studio lot trying to witness the exact time where it happened. Um, so he had a lot of great ability to make sure that people had fun on the set. And he was also an amazing director. One of the things that I saw, and this is the other story that I wanted to tell about his talent. When you are a television director, your main enemy is time. You don't have a lot of time to do what you need to do. Little House was famous for being on time and on budget, and sometimes under time and under budget, under schedule. Yet we would shoot an episode in 5 days, which is unheard of. Ask anybody. And we would shoot from 7:30 to 5:30, just daylight hours, because he wanted to be home for dinner with his family. Of course, when we needed to shoot at night, we'd adjust the schedule, but by and large, it was those hours. And he had this one scene that dealt with a funeral. And a funeral scene can be very time consuming and very costly, because in a funeral, you've got the whole town there. You have a long, eulogy. And in the way that you have to, what they call it is covering the scene, meaning like, how are you going to shoot it? Where are you going to put the camera? How are you going to get everybody's, expressions? You're going to need to have, a close-up of the preacher. You're going to need to have a close-up of Michael, close-up of the family, a close-up of the grave, a close-up of, all the people reacting. And then you have to have a wide shot. And then you have to have a ton of coverage. And invariably, you will take half of a day to continue to shoot this one scene that maybe an eighth of a page of dialogue. Verily, while we walk through the shadow of death, the preacher may be saying, and it's just that, but it's all the reaction shots. One of the things I was really impressed with Michael by was he set everything up. The entire cast was there, maybe 30 separate different actors that all had to be there at the same time. And then he set the camera up maybe about 100 yards away, so that everything was photographed in a tableau, and it was shot so that the backlight of the scene basically put everything in shadow, so it looked just gorgeous. And he did one take, and he recorded the sound, and he did one take where it was just taken from far away. And it was one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen, where everybody was in silhouette. You could see the gravestone, you could see the preacher, you could see the family, you could see them crying, you could hear everything. But he did it in one shot. He did something in one shot that other directors might take 30 setups to do. And he was done with this setup, I think, by 9:30 in the morning, when we had gotten there at 7:30. And it was, even as a child, I was very impressed. Anyways, as a person, he was wonderful. He would make jokes for the kids. He would tell completely inappropriately, wonderfully funny jokes for us kids that we would just laugh at and could never tell our parents. And I'm not going to tell here, but he was just delightful. And if you're going to pick a guy to follow and think is pretty wonderful, Michael, you couldn't get much better. There's so many other people in this town that, it's like, why Michael had to pass away instead of some of these other people. I miss him. I think we all miss him. I think that, the industry could use a Michael Landon right now. Anyways, thank you for shouting out, and I hope that you enjoyed these stories, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Take care.